Hi everyone, my name is Casey Astrology. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm an astrologer who practices tropical Vedic astrology, cartomancy, and human design. In today's video, I'm going to be looking at the human design chart of Colleen Ballinger. Now, if you've clicked on this video, you're probably already aware or have heard of Colleen. But for those of you who are unfamiliar, Colleen Ballinger is a YouTuber, vlogger, and the creative mind behind the satirical character Miranda Sings, who she plays on YouTube and in the Netflix series Haters Back Off. In this video, I'm going to be looking specifically at the nodes of the moon, or Rahu and Ketu as they're referred to in Vedic astrology. So this will be a nodal human design reading for Colleen Ballinger, in which I take a deep dive into the nodal gates and how they've manifested in her life, based on the details she's shared about her life online, as well as through my own research. Now, I'm particularly going to be looking at this through the lens of the recent online controversies that have happened in Colleen's life, and seeing how these have correlated to the energy of her north and south nodes. Because at the moment, Colleen is 39 years old, and she actually recently went through her nodal return. She does have her nodes in Aries Libra axis. So she has her north node in Aries and her south node in Libra. So having said all that, I'm going to go ahead and start the video where I go ahead and take a look at what's been going on in Colleen's life, as far as the controversies that she's been facing in the last, I'd say, about 2 to 3 years now, and looking at those through the lens of her nodes in human design. So let's get started. So let's talk about the nodes of the moon. What are the nodes of the moon? Within human design, your life's purpose can be seen through the Sun-Earth binary, but the nodes themselves have a special function. The function of the nodes lays the dynamic for how you're going to move from characteristic to role, because they set the stage. And in setting the stage, literally they provide the background or the environment in which you emerge from your characteristics into your role. So you can think of the nodes in your human design chart, the north node as well as the south node, or as I refer to them, Rahu, the north node, and Ketu, the south node. These kind of act as a stage, and you are the character or the actor who's out on that stage playing your role. That's really how you want to look at the nodes metaphorically through the lens of human design. And so when we look at the incarnation cross in human design, it combines the sun and earth, which are the purpose or your life's purpose, with your nodal environment. And its purpose is to fulfill your purpose, but through the fulfillment of your purpose, this needs to again be done on a specific stage, through your nodes, through specific continuity of scenes. And it is this setting of the stage that the nodes bring. And the nodes of the moon basically act as a background, and they are what set the stage. Now, I'll give you a brief refresh on the function of the gates in human design. So we have the black gates, which are on the personality side of the body graph, and we have the red gates, which are on the design side of the body graph. So if you look at the body graph itself, you'll see that there are 2 columns of numbers, and these are populated by the planetary positions at the moment you were born, which is the numbers in black, which are on the right-hand side of the chart. And then if you look at the left-hand side, we have the numbers that are all in red. And these red numbers represent the planetary positions approximately 88 days before you were born or before birth. So the black numbers represent the day and the exact moment of your birth. Those are the planetary positions that the black numbers represent. But the red numbers, they represent approximately 88 days before you were born. And this is considered to be the date when the soul enters the body before birth, in accordance to Ra-Uru-Hu, the creator of human design. So the right-hand column, which is black, is again called the personality gates. And the left-hand column, which is red, is called the design gates in human design. So when it comes to the nodes of the moon, everyone has two sets of nodes. There's the north and south nodes on the personality side. So these will be the nodes which are colored in black. And then there's also the north and south nodes on the design side. So these are going to be the nodes that are colored in red. The design nodes represent your physical environment and your body's interaction with life. The personality nodes represent what you are seeing in your environment and the perspective that you have in life. So you can think of your design nodes as the environment itself, the physical environment, and your body's interaction with life, as well as your body itself. And then the personality nodes are your perspective. So it's the way that you see life and the way that you process it through your mind's eye, and through your own individual perspective of how you see the world. And again, this is how you see the world from the stage which you are standing on, which is your design nodes. So I hope that made sense. And with that said, we're going to take a look at Colleen's personality nodes and really break them down and explore what they mean when it comes to her perspective in life and what she sees, which again will be based on her personality nodes. And then we're also going to take a look at her environment and how that's really shaped her perspective on life. So before we dive into that, I'm just going to talk about Colleen's profile in human design briefly, because our human design profile is a really important aspect of the way that we show up in life and our own individual personalities and characteristics that we're born with. So the profile really adds a layer on top of our nodes, our environment, and the way that we perceive our environment. So with that being said, let's talk about Colleen Ballinger's profile. And so Colleen is a 5-2 profile in human design. So in human design, everyone has a profile number, which is based on the line positions of the sun and earth in their chart. And Colleen Ballinger is a 5-2 profile in human design. So the important thing to know about the 5-2 profile in human design is that it's one of the more rare profiles, and it's a profile that faces a lot of pressure because it's made up of 2 lines which act as projection fields in human design. So what I mean by that is the 5-2 profile has the 2nd line and the 5th line. The 2nd line has a natural talent. This line is naturally talented, and because the 2nd line contains this built-in projection field, other people will make internalized personal projections at someone who has a 2nd line in their profile, and this is going to be internalized personal projections that are based on that second line person's talents or what other people perceive to be their talents. And because the second line is unconscious for Colleen, which basically means it's on her design side, it's in red, these projections are going to be connected to her physical body because, again, the design side has to more to do with your physical body and the way that your body presents itself through these activations. And so the way that someone who has a second line profile can be projected upon is first and foremost by their parents. And this is because the second line profile child, or the 5-2 child in Colleen's case, what their parents are going to see in them is this talent. And based on this talent that the parents are projecting upon their child because of what they perceive to be something that their child is naturally born with, they will therefore try to push their child towards that talent or make assumptions about them. So an example of this is a parent can say to their second line child, I see something in you. I'm going to put you in singing because you have a wonderful voice and I think that you can be an excellent singer. Or someone else can see a second line doing an activity that they enjoy, such as painting, for example. And they could say to that second line child, wow, I see something in your art and you're an artist. And, just because they say that to the second line child, it doesn't mean that it's true for the second line person. So it doesn't mean that what they're seeing is specifically correct for the second line. And it really doesn't mean that at all. It's just a projection. So that hermit is always drawing that internal projection from others. And even though the projection is made, it's still just that. It's just a projection. It's not necessarily going to be true. And it's not necessarily going to be correct for the second line person. And so that's something that Colleen probably experienced in her life growing up, in her childhood especially. There may have been things that she was naturally good at that weren't necessarily something that she considered a talent, but her family and the people around her, perhaps her parents, considered that a talent, and so sort of pushed her towards pursuing that. And actually, that's something that Colleen has talked about on her channel a few times, is that when she was very young, one of her grandparents really encouraged her to take singing seriously, and they were actually the ones that were able to pay for her lessons and get her into singing, which eventually led her into doing musical theater. And she talks about being very grateful that this grandparent really cultivated and championed her talent in that way, and really believing in her and helping her to achieve what she did with her musical talent and her singing ability. And as we all know, Colleen, she grew up to be an entertainer as well as a comedian, but specifically she is a singer. And so the second line projections, from our parents or from the second line parents, they don't always have to be a negative thing. Sometimes they can be positive, like they are in Colleen's case. But the takeaway from that is that the second line child usually has some talents that are perceived by the people around them and they're called out for those things. And that's another big thing about second line profiles is they're always being called out. And if what they're being called out for is correct for the second line profile, they can take that call, like Colleen did with her musical talent. But if that projection or that call isn't right for the second line talent, what they're being called out for, they don't need to take that call. They can, it's really up to them and following their own strategy and authority in that regard. And so now let's look at the fifth line profile, which is on Colleen's personality side, as she's a 5-2. So when we look at the fifth line, which is the line of universalization, it's also a projection field, much like the second line. But the projection field felt by the fifth line is an external projection rather than an internal projection. And so what the fifth line person experiences is an external projection from other people based on the other people's beliefs and expectations of that fifth line person being a problem solver, or thinking that the fifth line person can be a savior for them or like a superhero. So the projections that the fifth line people experience are more of on a practical level. And the way that they present themselves is usually a person who sees a fifth line is someone who is going through some kind of problem where they need a solution. And when they run into the fifth line person in their life, when they run into the 5-2 like Colleen, they'll see something in Colleen and they'll project that upon her as, oh, you can help me with this. You are a problem solver in this regard, and I need you to solve all my problems right now. And the thing about the fifth line is they too can take this call of the projection, but if they do and they don't live up to the expectations of the other person making the projection onto them, that's when their reputation can suffer, because that's considered a failure for the other person, and then they will go ahead and slander that fifth line person. So the fifth line really has to think about what roles they're willing to accept when it comes to other people's projections onto them of being able to do a specific job, to fulfill specific tasks. They have to make sure that they're really up for it and they have the talent and the perseverance and the skill set to really take on what's being expected of them. Because if they don't, that's again when their reputation will take a hit. They can be considered liars because they weren't able to fulfill their promises. So what does this have to do with Colleen? Well, Colleen specifically is a 5-2 profile. And so as a 5-2, what people will see in her is that they'll see something in her body talent-wise, which is coming from her second line, and they'll project that upon her, that she has a certain natural talent for painting, for example, because of her second line body. And they will then project the need to have their problems solved by her painting. And that's coming from her fifth line. So Colleen, through her art and painting, people can when she shares that online, when she shares her artistic ability, people can see that and want and say, wow, you're a really talented artist and painter. And they could start requesting for her to do more painting because they think that she's really good at it. or asking her to do a painting tutorial, asking her to sell her paintings because they really want to buy them and they feel like she's really talented and they want to support her. But the thing is, naturally, as a 5-2 profile, Colleen will feel these projections and internally think, why are they asking me these things and projecting them onto me that I'm an artist? Because again, all of these things are just projections, they're not necessarily true. And so when that happens, she'll say, why are they asking me to do these things and projecting onto me that I'm an artist? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not even that good. My technique isn't good. I haven't trained for this. I haven't been in school learning how to really perfect this as a craft. All I'm doing is tracing over a picture and coloring it in with paint, That's not painting, is it? I don't consider this real art. I'm a perfectionist and I don't feel comfortable sharing my painting with the world because I don't think it's good enough to sell, etc., etc. And that's another thing about someone with a second line profile is even if they do have a talent that comes naturally to them, they don't see it. It's just something that they do. And then when people call them out for it and ask them to show them, how did you do this? Like, how did you come up with this? How are you able to create this? Usually the second line profile person, they just don't know. And they don't know how to go about explaining themselves because they kind of feel like a fraud because, in their mind, it's like, I don't know, I just did it. Like, it's just something that I didn't train for, like it came naturally to me. And they don't really know how to articulate that to other people when it's projected on them that they're talented at something, and people want to know how. So that's something that second line profile people should really look out for, is that when they're asked to kind of show their work, that's something that really trips them up because they're like, well, I don't know, I just do it, and it's like they don't really know how to articulate how they do things. So when it comes to Colleen, as a 5-2 profile, the way that she perceives herself as a 5-2 profile is that she's constantly being asked of things basically due to her natural talents, as well as the talents which are projected upon her by other people. So by her family, by friends, by her audience, by her viewers, by her fans. And of course, these projections will arise through others observing her in her natural habitat, doing what she's good at or doing what comes natural to her. And something to note about the 5-2 profile in human design is that the 5-2 profile doesn't have karma with other people. They themselves are holding karma within themselves. So they have to live out something that's based on what they've lived out in the past. And they are the ones that have to discover it. So, and this is because if they don't discover it, it doesn't come out, and then they can't universalize their talents, or they can't universalize what they have to offer to the world practically. So what 5-2 profiles are literally looking for in that sense is self-motivation. And essentially, you can't get a 5-2 profile to do anything unless it motivates itself. So they are the ones that have to be motivated to do the thing that you want them to do. It's not going to come externally from external pressure. It has to come from within themselves. So unless the 5-2 profile believes in itself and motivates itself to do the thing, it will not be universalized, and they won't share it with the world. And so that's a bit of some context into Colleen's 5-2 profile. So now I'm going to talk about her personality nodal environment. So let's get into that. So when we look at the nodes in human design, the most important thing to pay attention to is the actual lines of the nodes before we even begin to interpret the gates themselves. So Colleen has her conscious node in line 6. And the way that I can see this is looking at Colleen's body graph. If we look at her design nodes, which are, her personality nodes, which are the nodes that are in black, we can see that in her north node and her south node, she has the gate 51, line 6 as her north node, and then in her south node, or K2, she has the gate 57, line 6. So that's what I mean by looking at the lines. So we can see that in her personality side, Colleen's Rahu and Ketu, or her nodes, are in line 6. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what that means now. So the themes for line 6 are the role model / aloof. These themes involve perfectionism and avoiding mistakes. So what that means is basically the environment that Colleen would have witnessed growing up and would have really shaped her perspective on life is that she sees her life stage as one of an immense pressure to be perfect. And that perfectionism can really paralyze her and make her not want to do anything at all out of fear of not having it be good enough or be perfect. So the themes of perfectionism and avoiding mistakes. And so there would have been some shame around making mistakes, and she will have felt an external pressure for perfection. And this will have manifested as this external pressure to be perfect, as well as an internal pressure to prove herself, because Colleen also has a defined heart / ego center. So when you're born with a defined heart center, and this is true for anyone in their human design, basically you're born with this feeling of needing to prove yourself. And in Colleen's case, she was born with this feeling of needing to be special and needing to be brave. And this is coming from the gate 51, which has that quality to it. So Colleen would have had this feeling of needing to be special and needing to be brave enough to prove herself as a special talent, as a special musical talent with the ability to transmit and sell her unique gifts and natural talents to the tribe, because gate 51 is the gate of being special and being unique, and Colleen has it defined in her defined heart center. And so this is a fixed energy that's always there and readily available in her. It's not something that she needs to have activated by another person or through transits or anything like that. It doesn't need to be activated electromagnetically, I should say. It's something that she has within her at all times. So there would have been this pressure to be a perfect role model for others, and to be an example for the collective of someone who is always exalted in their actions at all times. And because this is happening in gate 51, she would have felt this immense pressure to be first in her environment as well, and to be a point of initiation for others into new experiences. And often these initiations involved Colleen taking huge leaps of faith and being forced to jump into the void and be brave, without knowing if she would be able to stick the landing or where she would land at all. She basically has to take a lot of leaps of faith as someone who has the gate 51 as her Rahu or her north node. The gate 51 initiations and leaps of faith involve shock. So, shocking experiences, shocking revelations, shocking accidents, etc., etc. So, these leaps of faith that Colleen would have been accustomed to experiencing in her environment will not have been very pleasant or nice, relaxing experiences for her in the moment. Instead, they will have involved a lot of stress, surrender, and a fear of the unknown, and even a fear for her own survival, as well as the feeling of needing to fight and to fight for her own individuality and to fight for her own purpose, regardless of what others are telling her to be. And so having this line 6 influencing her nodal environment, there would have been this underlying dread of, I don't know if I'm going to survive another day if I don't do this thing, or I can't survive much longer as a starving performer unless I get this gig. So there's always this sense of urgency and a feeling of needing to do something more to secure her own survival because of the gate 57-6. The gate 57 is her personality south node, or K2. And the gate 57 is a fear of tomorrow that's inherently selfish. So the gate 57 person is really focused on their own survival on the physical plane and not worried about anyone else, and not worried about the tribe or anything like that and how they're going to survive. It's all about them. So there will have been this need to be completely financially independent and self-sufficient as well, that Colleen would have felt and still feels in her environment because of this inherent fear of failure coming from her design south node as well, which is the gate 32 line 2. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about Colleen's design nodal environments. So the design nodes represent your physical environment and your body's interaction with life. When you look at Colleen's design nodes, it's very evident that the birth of her character, Miranda Sings, was a result of her environment and the types of people that she encountered on her way to becoming a singer and an entertainer. And so Miranda Sings as a character was actually a very physical character. And this is because again, the design nodes have to do with the body. And Miranda was to Colleen an alter ego of sorts. And as a comedian, Colleen uses a lot of physical comedy. And so as a character, Miranda Sings, Colleen created this character that she had to dress up for, that she had to transform to become Miranda. It wasn't just something that she could just, snap her fingers and turn on. She had to play the part. She had to actually change her appearance and her facial expressions and her mannerisms, and her personality to become Miranda. And this is really reflected through her design nodal environment, her design nodes. So in order to become Miranda, Colleen physically had to change her clothes, her voice, her facial expressions, her mannerisms, and of course, most notably, her appearance. And, once that lipstick went on and her hair was scraped back with those 2 hair clips, and she had put on those red haters back off pants, and she put on Miranda's signature pinstripe men's shirt and buttoned it up all the way to the top, Only then was Miranda born and back and ready to perform. Um, and so this is a really clear manifestation of Colleen's design Rahu or North Node, which is gate 42, line 2. And this is because this is the line or the gate of identification. And so it's all about powering one's growth through participation in trends. And that's exactly what Colleen was able to do with her Miranda Sings character. So, gate 42, line 2, in its exalted state, it's about the recognition and acute capitalization of trends, and its power for growth through participating in trends. And of course, this is exactly the formula Colleen used to make Miranda Sings videos. And this is the line of identification. And Miranda was just that. So she was an identity and she was an alter ego that Colleen created as a character that she went on to make into essentially a parody of like the popular girls that she went to school with. And this was when she was studying musical theater as a musical theater major. So Colleen was really able to capitalize on viral social media trends, often of the musical variety. As Miranda Sings, she would do musical cover parodies of actual female pop artists such as Ariana Grande, Taylor Swift, Jojo Siwa, etc., etc. And Colleen, as Miranda, would make YouTube videos of herself singing these songs in her unique style. And the formula that really allowed Miranda to go viral on YouTube and to just achieve success, first within the theater community in New York and eventually the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, was her ability to absolutely butcher these musical covers in a satirical parody style that really made it extremely comical for her audience. And so initially, what attracted Colleen's audience to the Miranda Sings character was how funny she was. And it's like people were laughing at her, not with her. And the whole premise of Miranda Sings as a character is that she doesn't see that. It goes over her head because, she's so like full of herself and confident in her talent and the way that she sings and thinking that, she's a really talented and good singer. But actually the joke for the audience is that she's clearly not. And so that's what's comical about the character. And this really, again, reflects that gate 51 North Node. And the gate 51 is that feeling of wanting to be special and unique, and feeling that you just need to have the courage to show your uniqueness and be brave and fight through the competition because you know that you have something that's different than other people that makes you stand out. And so that was something that Colleen really incorporated into her Miranda Sings character. And it really shone through in that way. And Colleen actually would later describe her performance style as Kaufman-esque. And this was how she was able to amass such a massive following of viewers who really fell in love with the Miranda Sings character. It was by using this character that she had developed to follow trends online and on social media through, TikTok, through Instagram, or through YouTube. Actually, YouTube is her main platform for Colleen. It always has been, especially for Miranda. And it was actually when Colleen stopped following these trends that the growth of the Miranda Sings character stopped. And of course, this happened physically for Colleen because gate 42, line 2 is her design North Node. So again, this manifested through her body in that she physically pulled away and separated herself from Miranda's character. in a literal sense when Colleen was actually canceled for some of Miranda's past comedy bits and humor. Um, and when that happened, Colleen actually chose ultimately to quit the Miranda character, essentially. She stopped doing Miranda at all. And she stopped mentioning her, and she stopped doing any promo for Miranda uh, or as Miranda. So that thus really left her career growth stagnant, because she was no longer following the viral internet trends and capitalizing on them to grow Miranda's audience, and create new content with her. Um, and again, gate 42, line 2, which is her design north node, that's essentially all it does. It's the line of identification, and it's about powering one's growth through participation in trends. And so when Colleen stopped doing that, that's when Miranda's character kind of died, and her career trajectory and the success that she had been experiencing, it kind of all stopped when she stopped doing Miranda. And the fact that Colleen was canceled as this Miranda Sings character, the cancellation itself can also be explained by the gate 51, line 6 on her personality north node. So 51, line 6 is called the line of separation. And it reads, in times of crisis, when all those around are confused and in disorder, the ability not to succumb to the panic, but to have the will and the vitality to survive it alone. And it's the power of the ego to meet challenges alone. And that's how this, her design north node, 51, line 6, presents itself when it's exalted. But when it's in detriment, curiously the same gift, but by one's attitude that invites disapproval that in extreme may prevent a successful separation. So the egoism to meet the challenge alone that may provoke and empower the challengers. And so when Colleen was canceled, and this happened by the same aspiring influencer on social media, who actually tried to cancel her a couple years prior to this happening. And she was able to defend herself the first time that she was canceled by this person, and she went on to tell her side of the story through a video and dispute whatever claims were being made against her, and that happened successfully. However, this time when that same person came back and tried to cancel her again a few years later, this time she allowed it to happen and didn't try to fight it. So gate 42, line 2 on her design, Rahu, it really made her physically aware that she needed to experience an ending in order for there to be a new beginning. Second lines only like to do things if they feel natural and there's no pressure towards a specific outcome. Because again, second line profiles, or anyone who has a lot of second lines, they only want to do things that come natural to them. And they don't want to be pressured by the outside world towards, creating a specific outcome with that thing. And so they're the naturals who are waiting for the call or who are called out. And Colleen was called out in this way to let something that she loved, which was the character that she had created and cultivated in Miranda Sings, die. That was what she was called out to do. And essentially, she was called out to let Miranda die and stop Miranda's growth process, because the gate 42, again, also has to do with death and endings. Endings that need to happen before there can be a new beginning. So when Colleen was suddenly called out to face this cancellation of her and her Miranda Sings character, she chose to painfully retreat into the background. And she has shared recently, actually, that since reemerging from this sort of private purgatory or hiatus that she went into, that this was extremely difficult for her mental and physical health. But again, with her moving more towards her gate 51-6 Rahu, this has to do with times of crisis. And when all those around you are confused and in disorder, it's the ability to not succumb to the panic, but to have the will and the vitality to survive it alone. And it's the power of the ego to meet the challenges alone. And Colleen really did have to do this because her fans and supporters were really confused, and there definitely was disorder from naysayers and former fans of hers online. But Colleen did do a response video to these accusations initially, based on the accusations of, again, this aspiring influencer who this was the second time that he was trying to cancel her. She actually responded in a video that she made. And the way that she responded to those accusations was by writing a song that she wrote on her ukulele, addressing the toxic rumors about her. And she actually called this song the Toxic Gossip Train. And this video, when she put it out, was actually absolutely trashed online by the haters of Miranda Sings and Colleen, as well as the media picked it up and really ran with it as well. And it almost got to a kind of like a hive mentality way, which is how cancellation or cancel culture really works. And I believe that the reason that this happened to Colleen was it was the plutonic manifestation or the detriment manifestation of Colleen's nodal environment of her Rahu in gate 51-6. And this is because, again, the gate 51 line 6, when it's in detriment, what happens is that by one's attitude, they invite disapproval, and that in the extreme may even prevent a successful separation. So the egoism to meet the challenge alone that may provoke and empower the challengers. And I feel that that really is what happened in this case. Once Colleen released that video, is she did really empower the challengers of her Miranda Sings character that they wanted to cancel her. And her putting up this resistance really like galvanized all of them to want her to be canceled even more and to push even harder for it. So they didn't allow her to have this successful separation from that incident or that episode. Separation was thwarted. And so she had to make her own separation where she pulled away from the character altogether, which wasn't her intention initially. And so I believe that in putting out that response video called the Toxic Gossip Train, even though Colleen was trying to shoot down the repeat accusations from this aspiring influencer once and for all and prove, like how ridiculous and malicious those accusations were, she instead angered the masses and invited more disapproval from her fans and from her former followers, which effectively prevented her from successfully separating herself from the drama. And that's directly reflected through the stage that Colleen is on in this life, which is her nodal gates. And so since this cancellation happened, Colleen has actually slowly come back into making YouTube videos. She hasn't brought back the Miranda character itself, and I don't know if she will. It seems like she doesn't plan on it. But she has since done a podcast interview recently where um, the whole cancellation of her Miranda Sings character as well as herself was discussed. And she did talk a lot about the fact that she wished that she handled that shock, um, those shocking incidences differently, and um, how she was really sorry that any of it happened. Um, but yeah, the overall, I feel like even though she didn't intend for any of this to happen, it would have happened anyways because this was the stage of her nodal environment. So there's this stage of, having these personal shocks, and unforeseen events, which really bring her into this initiation of destruction and change having to happen to her. Um, and again, there are other things in Colleen's chart which really add to this. So she has, for example, the 2838 channel of struggle. And essentially, anyone who has this channel, basically, they go through life having to face a lot of fights and challenges, having to do with the path that they choose. And so they always have to have this mentality of fighting through turmoil, essentially, and trying to remain themselves, even though people around them are telling them that they're wrong. And there's this energy of, having to fight against overwhelming odds for these people. And they can also bring that fight to other people, so causing other people to have to struggle when they're around as well. So that's also something to keep in mind. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about Colleen and her nodal environment. So I'm going to conclude the video here because it's getting a little bit long. But yeah, I wanted to thank you all for watching. And I hope that you enjoyed this human design nodal reading that I did for the singer and comedian Colleen Ballinger and her alter ego Miranda Sings. And so if you'd like me to do more videos like this one, please leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and that way you won't miss a single video from me. And you can check out more of my human design videos in my human design playlist at the end of this video. And if you're into the cards and want to see more Cards of Truth videos from me, I'll leave a link to my Cards of Truth playlist down below as well. And I'll also put it in the put it at the end of the video. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Oh, and one more thing before I forget. If you are a student of human design and are interested in learning more about it, I recently released an ebook on the format energies in human design. And that's called The Formats in Human Design, a Pocket Guide. And I'm going to link that in the description box below as well for you to check out. It's a really in-depth, detailed study guide for all things format energies in human design. So if you're interested in that, you can check it out. I'll leave a link below. And if you're interested in learning about the cards and the Cards of Truth meanings, I also have a Cards of Truth ebook as well called the Cards of Truth Pocket Guide, which I'll also link below. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.